Welcome in, everybody. Ready to dive deep again. Today, we're exploring this idea of, like a realistic approach to personal growth and finding yourself.
Yeah, so much of what we see out there feels, I don't know, kind of forced. We're using this awesome interview with Lily Reinhart to get into it. You probably know her from Riverdale.
Exactly. She talked with Jay Shetty on his On Purpose podcast and got super honest about her journey.
And we're not just going to recap it all. We're pulling out the good stuff, like what can you actually use in your own life, especially with all the crazy expectations we face these days.
Right. It's like, be your best self, but also don't try too hard. Makes no sense.
Exactly. And Lily gets into all of that, her anxiety struggles, her career path. She even talks about getting into spirituality, lots to unpack.
Yeah, it's so relatable. Like, she's this successful actress, but she was telling Jay how she used to have panic attacks so bad she'd quit jobs after just a few hours.
Whoa, intense. But that makes you think, how many people are out there dealing with that, especially in tough fields and just keeping it quiet?
It's a good reminder to, actually acknowledge that anxiety exists. Don't pretend it's not there.
Totally. And she didn't let it completely stop her either. She worked at Pier 1, moved back home for a while to save money to get to LA. It's inspiring in a way.
Like, even if your big goal seems impossible right now, those little steps towards it, they matter. Have you ever felt that? Like, when you're working towards something huge and it feels overwhelming?
Definitely. And speaking of those internal struggles, something Lily talked about that really resonated with me was how she grew up in a place where crying was like discouraged.
Oh, wow, that must have been tough. Made her feel ashamed of her emotions.
Yeah, like they weren't valid. And she's really pushing now for the opposite. Let yourself feel everything.
Makes sense. Bottling stuff up doesn't make it go away, right? It can even mess with your growth. Has that ever happened to you? Like, holding back how you truly felt?
Oh, all the time. And what's cool is Lily compares crying to laughter. It's just another natural release, not something to be embarrassed about.
That's such a good way to look at it. If it's healthy to laugh, why not cry too? Changes your whole perspective.
For sure. And so many of us are taught that certain feelings are bad and we avoid them. But what if letting ourselves feel them is actually the key?
It's like unlocking something within yourself. And she gets super real about relationships too. All that messy stuff in your 20s, breakups, feeling lost.
We don't talk about that grief enough, even if it's not a literal death.
Right. Society's like successful relationship, long relationship. But people naturally come and go in our lives. That's normal.
Exactly. And Lily hates that generic advice like, just go for a hike when you're heartbroken. We need real conversations about these things.
Totally. Have you ever felt that, like, when people try to oversimplify these huge emotional transitions? It's like, no, I need more than a walk in the park.
Exactly. And thinking about that impermanence, like, how has it affected your relationships? Has it helped you grow? Maybe opened you up to new connections?
Deep stuff. And Lily talked about this struggle some people have, where they only know who they are based on their work or what other people think. And she even got anxious in her downtime. Can you relate to that at all?
Oh, yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in external validation. But what was cool was Lily realized she needed to change the question. Instead of who am I, it became who do I want to be?
Whoa, that's a game changer. Like, instead of searching for an identity you're already given, you're actively creating one.
Exactly. And she had this amazing experience in a labyrinth, this meditative practice, and felt totally connected to herself.
Powerful imagery. And it made her realize she's not just what she does or what others think.
It's about those values you choose, the habits you build, what matters most to you, what kind of person are you working towards becoming?
It's inspiring to hear someone like Lily being so open about all of this. And she also got into spirituality, especially during the lockdown. She tried Reiki, sound healing, even connecting with psychics.
What I love is how she emphasizes finding what works for you in that world. It's not about following one dogma or anything, but exploring.
Yeah, and she's fascinated by things like the afterlife, intuitive stuff. Some people might be skeptical, but she's open to it.
Exactly. It's about that personal connection, even if it's outside the norm. Are there any practices or beliefs that help you feel that deeper connection?
It's all about personal exploration. And like she said, find a job that makes you happy. It's about aligning your actions with what you're passionate about.
Such a good point. And a big theme here is breaking free from those expectations, whether it's how you express yourself, your relationships, or even your spiritual side.
Exactly. It's like permission to figure out what truly works for you and to be honest about the struggles along the way.
Absolutely. Recognizing those ingrained patterns and being brave enough to choose differently, that's
Yeah.
powerful stuff. It takes courage to be honest about those struggles, too. Lily, she talks about her anxiety being like the constant fight or flight mode.
Ugh, yeah, that's got to be exhausting.
Totally unsustainable. Right. And that brings us back to needing those realistic, natural approaches. Like, she's not looking for a quick fix. It's deeper than that.
It's about understanding how those patterns affect you and making choices that actually work long term.
And she talked about being afraid of boredom, always needing to be doing something. I bet a lot of people feel that way, right? Like our culture is go, go, go all the time.
It makes you think about that moment she described in the labyrinth, just being present, no distractions. It's like we forget how important stillness is.
Absolutely. It's a shift, from needing everyone else's approval to finding that peace within yourself.
And she's not pretending it's easy.
Mm.
Like her intention, her big purpose is to find true happiness, peace with herself. But she knows it's a journey, not a finish line.
I love that. It's so freeing, right? Like there's always room to grow, to discover more about yourself. You don't have to have it all figured out right now.
Reminds me of how she was talking about not knowing who she was outside of work, outside of what people expected. If I'm not those things, then who am I? I thought we've all had that thought at some point.
Totally. And that's where that awesome realization comes in. Remember, changing the question from who am I to who do I want to be?
It's like taking control, right? You're not searching for something you're already supposed to know. You're creating it.
Exactly. And she talked about how that creation, it comes from the values you choose, the habits you build. What matters most to you? What kind of person do you want to be?
That's so powerful. She even talked about this with food, something a lot of us struggle with.
Mm.
Moving away from those processed things that feel good in the moment, but don't actually help you.
It's another example of being intentional, right? You notice the pattern, see its effect, and choose something different.
So like our physical health, mental health, emotional health,
Yeah.
it's all connected.
For sure. And she's realistic about it, too. She even compared it to personal growth in general, saying, take small steps, don't try to change everything at once.
Progress over perfection. Those little daily choices really add up over time.
They do. And it's not just about food, it's that mindset applied to everything. Those small, consistent actions that show who you're becoming.
It's making sure your actions match your values, basically. I mean, it makes me think about my own, laws for living, those non-negotiables that keep me on track.
Ooh, that's a great way to put it. Like, what are those guiding principles that help you live authentically?
Totally. And it circles back to what Lily said about honoring your feelings even when others don't get it.
Remember how she was like, nobody can tell you what you can or can't feel. So powerful, right?
Yeah.
We all have our own experiences to navigate.
And sometimes those paths lead you to unexpected places, like how she got into spirituality.
It's a reminder that it's okay to try new things, even if they seem weird or challenge what you already believe.
Lily, she's all about experimenting. Reiki, sound healing, all of it. Remember what she said her dad told her? Find a job you enjoy. It's all about figuring out what you're passionate about.
Love that. And those passions, they might evolve too. We're allowed to change our minds. It's all part of the journey.
The whole conversation makes you want to be kinder to yourself, trust your gut, honor your feelings, and know you're right where you need to be in this moment.
And remembering that growth, like true happiness, it's not a destination. It's something you keep working towards.
Yeah, it's like she's saying it's okay to not have it all figured out right now. And that's really freeing.
It is. She reminds us to find what works for us,
Yeah.
as individuals. So what really stuck with you from her story? Was it her anxiety stuff or the relationship stuff? Maybe even that spirituality exploration? What can you take away and use, like starting today?
Maybe this deep dive sparked something to know, like a new practice you want to try, or a different way to look at a relationship. Even just giving yourself permission to, have a good cry when you need to.
It's not about being exactly like Lily, but about finding your own way. Remember, this deep dive, it's just a starting point. There's so much more to explore on your own.
Thinking back on everything she talked about, what would your lifelong intention be? Like, what's that guiding force that helps you move forward with purpose?
That's a big question, right? But as you think about everything we discussed, what's one small step you can take today to become that person you want to be?
It all comes down to creating a life that feels authentically yours. And that means realistic growth, allowing yourself to express yourself, and making those small but meaningful choices every day.
So as you go out there and keep on this journey, remember Lily's message. Embrace your feelings, trust your gut, and don't stop creating the life you want.
And until next time, keep diving deep.